Sometimes I don't get things exactly right and I go back over my work. Yesterday was one of those days. I got an email from a reader who said, how do you make a cold call warm? And I shot a video about that yesterday where I said you cannot make a cold call warm, and here's why. A cold call simply means that the other person isn't expecting your call, there's nothing on their calendar, and you're interrupting them. That's what a cold call means. And you can't warm that up because they're still not expecting your call, and you're still interrupting them because you don't have an appointment when you call. That's the cold call, and you can't warm that up. But there are some things you can do so that when you make that call, you're going to get a different response than someone else who's making the same kind of call, and you increase your odds of getting a better outcome in that call. And I'm not talking about things like research and all that stuff. I'm talking about two things, two factors. The first factor is consistency in your pursuit. And the second is frequency. So let's talk about consistency and let's talk about frequency. Consistency means you don't call me in January and then call me back in August of the same year. That's 2 calls in a year. There's no consistent effort being put in on your part. In fact, what you're doing is sporadic. There's no pattern. There's no discernible pattern for sure. You're not that serious about it. It's hit or miss with you. I'm not really being pursued. I'm a name that you come across occasionally and you pick up the phone and you try it, but you're not really serious about it. I don't feel like I'm being pursued. I don't feel like you really want my business. You're not really trying very hard, so you're inconsistent. And that's who you are as a rep, and that's okay. That's what 95% of reps do. They call once in Q1 and once in Q3, and then they try it again in Q1 of the next year. That's why they're not successful. They're inconsistent in the effort and the pursuit. Look, if you want your dream client, they got to feel it. They got to know that you're trying to win their business. And if you're not messaging them with a message of value so frequently and with any kind of urgency, why should they act with any urgency to pick up the phone and respond to you and take a meeting? You're not serious about it. Why should I be? The second thing, though, is frequency. And let me say this to you this way. If you were going to call a client and ask them for a meeting 8 times in the course of a year, do it in 8 weeks or do it in 10 weeks, not more than that. And the reason is the frequency starts to build up and it starts to make your name known. And if you are calling and leaving a voicemail, following up with an email, and then the next week you're calling, you're leaving another voicemail, you're following that up with an email, and the next week you're calling and you're sending an email, and then you're connecting on LinkedIn, these things start to stack and they start to build on top of each other. So now I've got much better consistency and I've got a frequency that's been pulled much closer together than a call every 8 weeks or a call every 26 weeks, which makes no sense at all. And that frequency starts to build where people do know your name. And they say, why does this person keeps talking to me about the 4 trends in my industry and the decisions we have to make? What do they know? When you do get that person to pick up the phone, I'm not saying it's going to be a warm call. And I'm not saying that you're going to be greeted with open arms and the person's going to say, thank God you kept calling. That's probably not going to happen. But they are going to know your name. And they are going to believe that you have something that's worth talking about because you've pursued them consistently and with a frequency that makes sense. You've pursued them like you really want their business and you have something to say now. You're going to get a couple responses here, and one of them could be, listen, I'm not a prospect for you. Leave me alone. Stop blowing up my phone and stop sending me all your emails. That could happen, but it's not likely. What's more likely is somebody's going to pick up the phone and they're going to say, listen, I know your name. I know who you're from. Tell me about these 4 trends. I'm sorry I haven't been able to take your call. We're super busy here. What's on your mind? And you'll get some response that's better because they are going to know your name. They are going to know you have some message of value, and you will have pursued them consistently enough and in a frequency that requires them at some point to pick up the phone to say, yes, I'll meet with you, or no, go away, in which case you start the pattern all over again. I'm Anthony Iannarino. You can find me at thesalesblog.com where I post every day. You can find me right here where you found me on youtube.com/Iannarino, unless you're watching this somewhere else. When you go to either of these sites, do sign up for the newsletter, My Best Work Every Sunday, in your inbox Sunday morning so you can hit the ground running Monday morning. Hit the like button, share this with someone who needs it, and hit subscribe. This is every day.